Are you struggling to regain sustainability in your life and create a positive life stance? If so, listen in as courageous women share their empowering struggle of how they came through the trenches to restart and recreate a victorious life worth living. They took their power back. Learn the secrets of how they did it, and you can too. Welcome to the Real Heart Talk podcast and 360 Network for Women. And here's your host, Pamela Duran.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, Real Heart Talk. You are enough listeners. Today we have an awesome guest all the way from North Carolina. It's Jesslyn McCutcheon, and she is an expert. She is a member of NAMI, which is a National Alliance on Mental Health. She is a Certified National Helpline Specialist, a peer-to-peer mentor, and speaker for the In Our Own Voice. And she also does FaithNet presentations for NAMI. She is a member of the AACC, American Association of Christian Counseling, where she's a board-certified mental health coach. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder 24 years ago and is just now starting to actively share her story. And we're so excited she's going to share with us today. And she also started her ministry, Fighting Goliaths, for mental illness. I almost said fighting giants, but Goliath was a giant, right? And she has a passion to share the importance of spirituality and faith in a stigma-free mental health culture. Welcome, Jesslyn.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. I thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yes, I'm so happy that you can come and share with us about mental health. And it sounds like you pursued it because you have experienced it. So do you want to share a little bit about your story, and then we can talk about your expertise, what you do for NAMI and the AACC?
Sure. Well, like you had mentioned in the intro, I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder 24 years ago. It started for me right after I graduated from college. And I found myself one day really struggling to get out of bed. And it started with not having a lot of energy and taking everything in me to try to get ready for work, to try to do my hair, put on a little bit of makeup. It got to the point where I went into work one day and my boss called me in his office, and he had noticed the decline for a period of time. And he sat me down and he kindly and compassionately said, Jesslyn, I'm not sure what is going on with you, but I want you to take some time and get the help you need if you need some help. At that time, I didn't have much to say. I didn't know what to say because I really didn't know what was happening to me. That day I left, I went back to my apartment in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I went back into my room. I crawled in the bed and I didn't get out for the next 3 weeks. I didn't get out until my roommate had called my parents saying, I'm really, really worried about Jesslyn. She's not coming out of her room. She's not showering. She's not eating. I really think she needs help, and I'm really scared for her. My parents did come to Greensboro, and they moved me back home. 2 weeks after I moved back home, I attempted suicide. I was that in the depth of not seeing a way out. I just didn't understand what was going on. So when we first started, I was initially diagnosed with MDD, major depression disorder, and OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. 3 very, very long years later, I was diagnosed at 26 with bipolar 1 disorder. Mm-hmm. And what bipolar disorder is a chronic mental illness that causes dramatic shifts in a person's mood, energy, and ability to think clearly. People with bipolar disorder have these high moods which is considered mania, and these low moods, which is depression. And they differ from the typical ups and downs most people experience. If left untreated, the symptoms usually do get worse. However, with a strong lifestyle that includes self-management and a good treatment plan, many people can live well with a condition. And it has taken me many years to know what my treatment plan is and to be on the correct medicine that works for me, just to know how to take care of myself. It has not been an easy road. It has been a journey. Living with a serious mental illness will continue to be a journey. It's not a linear process. It is a lifelong journey that we will, battle for the rest of our lives. But I am here to tell you that you can live a good life. There is always hope. I want your listeners to know more than anything, if they are in the depth of depression or despair, that there is always hope and they can get out of it. And what helped me to get out of it, not only finding the correct treatment plan, was eventually really understanding my faith and my belief in God. And I was mad. I was mad at God for many years because of this diagnosis. And I didn't understand why. I didn't understand why I had to go through all this. I look back and I'm like, I was a pretty good kid. I really never gave my parents a lot of issues growing up, and I just didn't understand. And so I pushed God away for many years when I should never have done that. My faith wavered in and out for many years, going through those different stages of living with bipolar 1 disorder. As much as I love God, many times when you're in the depth of depression, it's hard to seek his presence. It's hard to pick up your Bible, but I had to train my mind, even in the depths of depression. That is the first thing you need to do. And that is what has changed me. That is why I am where I am today, because I finally let go of the control and let God take it from me and trusted him that he was going to see me through this. He was going to give me a purpose for all of this. And it took a very long time, but I finally found my purpose. And my purpose is now my ministry, Fighting Goliath for Mental Illness. And all I want to do.
I'm going to stop you 1 minute because that's a lot. So we went through 24 years real quick.
Yes.
So it's like, that everything was fine. And then you just started experiencing this. So did something happen? Do you have some kind of major life change or anything happen in your life that brought this on?
Yeah, actually, there was a trigger. I was dating a boyfriend for over 3 years. And from the beginning of our relationship, it wasn't the healthiest of relationships. I was criticized a lot. I was, just watched a lot. It always appeared that other people, other women, I needed to be like them. And I was always having to I just felt like I was always one step under than him. And our relationship was, it was rough. And that was the trigger for me. That relationship needed to come to a close because I was so in love with this man. And I thought this was the man that God wanted me to marry, that I wasn't going to end the relationship. Something or someone was going to have to put something in my life to make it end. And that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know when you are that in love, I mean, that's your focus, right? And where your focus goes, your energy flows. And then, it's like you were talking about your fate, Jesus is the lover of our soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many times we grow up with think and comparing ourselves to others, maybe your mom, your sisters, your friends, well, they got this, I can deal with this, or this isn't that bad. But yeah, when you're in a relationship like that and it's not yes and amen like Jesus, yes and amen,
Yeah.
and it's like, bye-bye, time to go. But it sounds like that, he was very narcissistic and controlling and verbal abusive. And I hope that it wasn't physical as well. But I'm so glad. I mean, I hate that you had to go through this, but I'm glad that you broke free from uh, that person.
Yes, me too. And it wasn't till later on when I was initially diagnosed with MDD and OCD, I didn't really realize that we had a genetic component in our family linked to mental illness. My
Wow.
grandmother on my father's side of the family was very severely depressed, and she had severe paranoia. And my mom started sharing stories from me as a child and some things that would happen. And my grandfather, also on my dad's side of the family, also had depression. And from what I have learned, that living with a serious mental illness such as bipolar disorder, research has been done that most often it is through genetics. Genetics have some part to play with living with a serious mental illness such as bipolar disorder. So my genetics do play a role in it.
So if you have a friend or anybody listening has somebody, maybe them or they may have a friend, I mean, what can you do? I know your parents came to get you, but I mean, are these people going to listen to you? I mean, I know that we lovingly care for our friends and our family, but how do we actually reach out to help them?
That's a great question. And I think the best thing anybody can do is to be active in listening, to listen, to understand the person. You don't have to be a professional mental health person. You don't need to have certifications or be a psychiatrist. It's seriously giving of yourself and having empathy and compassion for this person and being there, but not just being there, but literally taking action. If you see something's wrong with somebody and something's not quite right, it doesn't stop there. And especially with mental illness, it takes action after that. Check in on that person, send that person a card, send that person a text, until you feel like they're getting up on their feet again. And even after that, I mean, if they're living with a serious mental illness and they start to go quiet again, something could be wrong. Even at that point, check in on them again. It is so important to not leave a person lonely and in that isolation type phase. That is when people need somebody the most. That is the most critical point, is when they start to lose hope. And it could only be one person listening to them, and that one person can give them hope that it's still okay to go on,
Yeah, I agree that we need to reach out. I mean, it's not just, I mean, it knows no age limit, right? I mean,
So,
it's the youth of today, it is our older people of today, and all the people in between. I mean,
yeah.
I've really seen it. So I know that your mission and your ministry are going to reach out and really help a lot of people. So let's talk about your ministry and how that you focus on touching those lives and helping those people, come up out of the depths, because it is a depth, when you don't feel love
Right.
or you don't feel hope, how are you going to help them through your fighting Goliaths?
And that's what it was for me for many years. I did not have self-love for myself. I had to learn how to take care of myself and give myself self-love again. And I had to really, you have to know God before you can know yourself. And that was a big piece of the puzzle for me. I have been a Christian since I was a little girl. I was saved when I was 6 years old. And But I can honestly say, I didn't trust 100%. I had to literally know God and gain his wisdom through all these years to be able to be at the point I am now and to be able to help somebody else. My ministry, Fighting Goliath for Mental Illness, it established last year, and it is a passion of mine. It's about bringing faith and spirituality together and talking about that within churches and building stigma-free cultures within churches. Why mental illness is so important in churches, you know? Mental health affects everyone. Right now in the United States, there are over 60 million people affected by mental health, and it's 1 in 5 every single year. And 50% of all lifetime cases of mental illness begin by the age of 14 and 75% by the age of 24.
Wow.
If we can recognize mental health conditions and the major problem they pose for people, then we can be helpful. But most congregations, they don't know how to help, you know? They fear having those types of conversations, or they fear of not knowing what to say, having the lack of knowledge, you know? And often people, when they are in a crisis mode, searching for somewhere to go, the church is the first point of contact. It's not the hospital. It's not a doctor. Often it is the church. It is where people, they want a safe place to go. And when they think of a safe place to go, the first place is the church. And we as a church need to have these resources and understand just how huge of an opportunity this is to serve the people in our congregations and the rest of the faith communities.
Yes, no, I agree. And I think that you're right. It's that lack of knowledge
Yes.
and not knowing what to say. I mean, I know myself, even thinking about this today, I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, you know, or, you know, say the wrong thing. So I think it is that lack of knowledge. But does your ministry help increase the knowledge, or is there places where can people go to find out more and to actually get more acclimated and knowledgeable so that we can be the feet and hands of Jesus and the mouth, you know, of Jesus? What we speak, we create. We're creators like him. So we can come into the community with people and help them.
Absolutely. My website, JesslynMcCutcheon.com, is still under construction, but should be up running live by the end of the month. There is a section on there specifically for resources, for mental health resources, and it just lists resource after resource. If people just visit the website that they may not be aware of, they may not know of. A lot of people, you know, the new suicide crisis line 988. It's a 3-digit number, so it's easy to remember, just like 911 was created. But a lot of people still do not know that that number is specifically to help people who are in a crisis situation and, you know, who are considering suicide. And if they reach out to that number, they're going to get a trained professional on the other end. And research has also been done with this new 988 number, that they are able to talk down the most of the people who call in, and really only a small percentage of people need to have further help. It's a huge, huge, you know, movement for everyone.
I've never heard of that, so I'm glad that you're sharing it here. I'll definitely put it in our show notes so that, you know, people will be informed. And two, calling that number, I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, if people call, I mean, do they have to worry about, you know, anybody showing up to their house to take them anywhere? Or, I mean, is it completely safe environment and space for them to share what their feelings are?
It is. Like I said, only 3 or 4% are taken to the next step, you know, and it is completely confidential. But if you are suicidal, and when you are suicidal, seconds matter, minutes matter, you know, they're going to do an assessment and ask you certain questions. And if you're not passing that, you know, assessment, they want to get you help, you know, it's imperative. But yes, those whole conversations are completely confidential. They don't know where you are. They don't have any of your information. You would physically have to give them that information if you wanted to have further help come to help you. And another important thing to really realize is that there are CIT, crisis intervention teams. If, you know, there's an imminent situation that you have, if you reach out to 911, make sure you ask for a CIT team, a crisis intervention team. They are teams consisted of police officers who have been trained for crisis interventions. And they also have other people, mental health professionals on that team. So when they come to your house, they have somebody who's going to understand that person's need. You know, those police officers have been trained to understand that this is a mental health situation and not not a regular 911 situation. This needs to be handled in a different kind of way. That's why it's so important to have those crisis intervention teams. You know, they can come in there and handle it with a mental health response and not a police response. And it's more, it's safe. It brings us safety quality overall for everyone. So
Do they lower the people's defense, because they may get really defensive?
Yeah. And sometimes if you, especially people, you know, living with a serious mental health condition such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, if they are not being treated correctly, you know, or they're in the beginning stages of it, or they've never been treated at all, they could be in a manic phase, you know, they could be really upset. And it's important that there are people who know how to de-escalate those situations. And police who haven't been trained yet in that area, that's when something could go awry. That is why it is so important to have the police who have been trained in a crisis intervention team. Good golly. Say that 3 times over and over and over.
No, that is good to know, because like I said, I've not heard of that, the 988. So I'm happy that you're sharing that with the audience, and anyone out there that is feeling suicidal, please call that number. It is completely safe and private, as Jesslyn talked about. And also, her website's going to be up by the end of the month, and you can go look up resources. I'm sure you could go Google it out there, but I feel like with your expertise that you have those specific resources that would dive deep into the mental illness, whatever area that is, whether it's depression or anxiety or bipolar or all the many. I mean, there's plenty of them. I just don't know them all. So
that is the whole, that is the whole purpose of my ministry, though, too. What I want to do more than anything, I want to help others. I want to give them the resources that took me 24 years to be able to build and to be able to get. You know, I didn't know 20 years ago, there wasn't a 988 number back there. And I didn't know about NAMI back then and how that organization could help me and my family so much, you know. Yes, I'm so excited for it. And I just hope people do go to visit the website more than anything, and to reach out if I can ever be of, you know, help to them. And
yes, and it's important to know, because I think this is a delicate but widespread, as you already said, 60 million people, 1 in 5 issue. But you need to know it's not like it was in the traditional days. You know, you're not going to be banished or put down or looked down upon. people, since I feel the sincerity, that people really want to help others. And that's what we as Christians, Jesus' disciples, should do, is really come alongside, our people when they're hurting and just lift them up, like you were saying, a card, a letter, a note, whatever, you can impart to them. A lot of times just a phone call, or maybe just a visit, just visiting them and just actively listening. I love that, because I have started practicing that more myself, just with, family and work, just really actively listening and being present. Because so many times, especially in this world of distractions, we are thinking or doing other things, especially on our phone, while people are talking to us.
Yes.
You're missing a lot. People,
Yes.
you're missing a lot if you were doing that.
Yes.
Try to show up, be present, and just listen.
The greatest commandment, right? Found in Matthew 22, 37 through 39. Love the Lord your God Almighty with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. And the second greatest commandment is love your neighbor as yourself,
Yes.
however they are. I wanted to say too, I'm so passionate about this because I've read a lot of research that has been done with mental health in the church, and a study was also done to show that 30 to 40% of people who do reach out to their church and they don't have the correct resources, or they don't know how to handle the situation, they receive a negative response. And we don't want that. We don't want people feeling more shame for a chronic illness that, is not their fault. Mental health needs to be treated like physical health. It needs to be prayed for like physical health. How many times are we in our church services, especially like on Wednesday, you have Wednesday night prayer service, and all these hands are going up and we're praying for all these people with physical illnesses. But how often do you hear people, can you pray for my daughter who has bipolar disorder? They're scared to say it. The conversations need to be had so they can continue to open, to normalize the conversations, so people feel safe to be able to open up. It's so important. I know what my family and I went through in those first initial years when we had no idea what was going on. We didn't know how to have these types of conversations with people. That is why I'm so passionate about it too. I don't want people and families to have to go through what my family did. If I can help in any way to bring any insight to that, I want to do that for others.
And that's so helpful and needed today. It's a very deep subject. So listeners, please look out for Jesslyn's website. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, only because I know a secret. You're working on a book.
Yes.
Out your book, and what's in that? Maybe share a little bit about it.
Yes, I'm only going to share a little bit about it. And I bet you can't even guess the title. The title of the book, y'all, is Fighting Goliath. The whole book, it's a little bit about my journey, but it takes you through what the stages, what God has done in my life. The hero of the book is our God the Father. The whole book is being written around what he has done for me over these past 24 years, and how he has been molding me all these years to get to the point where I am today, when I couldn't see it back then. Never in my life did I think I would be standing up in churches speaking about living with a serious mental illness. Never in my life. Never in my life have I thought that I would ever write this type of book. But the Lord has laid this on my heart with everything that's going on in our world today. I it took me a while to get there, but I finally got the courage. I finally got the bravery. And now I have the armor, the complete armor of God behind me, and anything is possible.
Yes.
So I don't fear it anymore. I'm not scared. And I hope there are more people out there, and whoever is listening to your show can speak up regarding mental health. It will help to destigmatize what this world currently still faces all the time. And as a result of that, 46% of people do not seek the desperate help that they need because of stigma. We need to, normalize that. We need to have these conversations. We need to speak up.
Well, we're going to start speaking up. And our listeners, I'm happy that you're here today, here, Jesslyn, and hopefully, if you're experiencing anything like this, that you will reach out for the help and speak up and not just suffer in silence. A lot of people do that, and we don't suffer in silence. We care.
And I'm glad you said that, suffer in silence, because suffering in silence also equals your death sentence too. There are so many times I sat in church and sat in one of those pews, and the worship music would come on, and there would be lyrics that we were singing that tears would just start pouring because I wasn't able to share any of that. I didn't feel comfortable sharing with anybody what was going on inside my head and what I was dealing with. Or the pastor would start preaching on a message that just fit perfectly in everything you said. Again, I mean, the tears, the kind of tears that are like ugly tears, makeup everywhere, black mascara running down your face, that you can't sit there. I would have to get up. I would have to leave. I love worship. I sing. I've always loved to sing. There have been times where we'd be singing in the choir and it would hit me in the choir, and all of a sudden tears just flooding down. And while the choir's still singing their song, I'm quietly just walking off, and out of the church I go. Yeah, people, you don't want to sit in silence. It can kill somebody on the inside.
Yes, definitely. And those tears, God understands those languages of those tears. There's a song I used to sing about that. So he understands your tears. He understands your fears, and he designed you. He made it after his own image.
Yes.
So knows every cell, molecule, everything in our body. He knows, and he heal us just like he says. By his stripes we're healed. Where 2 or 3 are gathered, his spirit is there also. So you have that to reach out to, as well as medical professionals. Now, Dr. Norma Vincent Peale says it's okay to take medicine while you're trying to get your healing, because that medicine is helping you too. So love that. I read that in The Power of Positivity, Positive Thinking, The Power of Positive Thinking. Yeah.
And that is very true. And that is a very important statement you just made too, regarding medication. People shouldn't feel shameful for having to take a medication, maybe for a short period of time, to pull them out of that depression. It's not something that they will need to be on forever for all cases. In even living with a serious mental illness, there's a smaller percentage of people that actually do need to be on medication for their whole life, such as my case. And people need to understand that. It's just like my father, who has high blood pressure, him taking his medication every day for his high blood pressure. Jesus made these people, gave them these talents to make these drugs. So if we need them to make our, minds and our body all work as one, people who have physical illnesses have to take medications, and people who have mental health illnesses have to take medications. it's okay to be able to take medication. It doesn't make you any less of a Christian.
Right. That is correct. This has been so fruitful. I have enjoyed our time together, Jesslyn. I want to touch on one more thing though.
Ma'am.
Before I find out where you're speaking next, is your music. So I know that you've written a couple of CDs. So where can people find your music?
You know, it's this is so funny too, because I didn't understand for a very long time how God was going to use the music that I have written. I wrote my first CD. A lot of the songs that I wrote were war cries, I would say, and in the closet of my bedroom. I would go to the closet of my bedroom, like a prayer closet, and I would write, or that's where I would scream out my war cries when I was having a bad day, or when, you know, the depression would be so heavy. That first CD I wrote is called On the Edge. And a lot of those songs were literally when I was on the edge. I had just, it was 2019. I had just had a serious neck surgery, and I was out of work for a period of time. And while I was home trying to recover from that illness, I also stopped certain medications that I take for my bipolar disorder, because I have experienced drug interactions in the past. I'm very particular. I know my body. I know what it can handle, you know, and it was a very, very difficult year. That whole CD was birthed that year. And then 6 months later, I actually ruptured another disc in my neck, and the next CD, Run, was birthed, which was a completely different CD. The first one is like, I'm going to fall off the edge here, but God, please still love me, you know, still love me, still hold me, still lift me up. And then Run is about the first thing you need to do is run into the arms of Jesus every morning when you get up, every afternoon, every evening. You know, he is your safety net. He is the only one who is going to be able to pull you up out of this. So that second CD was birthed then. And then now, you know, 4 years later, I had my third neck surgery. And during this recovery period of time, I started writing my book, and I wrote a lot of my book, because I have been out of work now for 10, 11 weeks. I'm still in the recovery process. And I look back at all those stages, and it all makes sense to me now, because with my music in the beginning of it, I'm like, I don't think people like it. I think I just really wrote those songs for myself, you know? I don't know if they're even any good at all. It's just, I've always loved to sing. I've always loved to worship. But in the book, right, after each chapter, I'm including the lyrics to the songs, because they match up with each chapter of the book. Now, I don't know if after every chapter, I haven't decided this yet, it will have a song, but I wrote On the Edge and Run, and there were about 17 to 18 songs written during that period of time. And I see now how God is going to use them within this book too, to help other people. In my music, I've had people tell me before, help them so much, you know, but yeah, well, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
I love singing. I love worship. I sing on our praise team here at my home church here in King, North Carolina, and I'm a part of the choir. And I just, you know, that's another thing too. If you have, if you're feeling down, whatever, turn that worship music up. Turn
Yes.
it up. Sing it loud, and have the Holy Spirit fill you, and it will transcend you to a different place. That will help you immensely as well. And
Yes.
my music has always been a weapon in my toolkit for me as well with my mental health.
Yes, in my book, it starts with in you, heart, mind, emotions, deceived. It's an inside job. I have a whole chapter on there, how the melody is your music, your healing through
Yes.
your. So it is the truth. And worship, it's biblical. He tells us to pray. He adores our worship and praise. It's like a sweet savor that comes up to him. So when we're doing that, we're just, like you said, ushering in the spirit, to come in the presence, to get out of that funk that you may be in, whatever's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Okay. Oh, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I think when I think about worship and with this upcoming book, I do talk a lot about King David in my book and how he would just cry out to God. Within the book of Psalms, there's so many Psalms he has written, and King David made many mistakes. He lied in many situations, but how he cried out to God, God always forgave him because it came from his heart. So many times I was like, how can he continue to forgive me? I have failed him time and time and time again. How many chances do you get? But God knows your heart.
I'm 70.
Huh?
So 7 times 70.
Yes. God knows your heart, and that's all that matters. I mean, if you have a heart for God, we're gonna mess up. We're not perfect. We're not Jesus, but
Never,
nope.
but we're making progress. As a friend of mine said last week, I wrote it down. She said, if you're always striving for perfection, you're always going to be disappointed or something like that. But I always say practice makes progress, because if you're making progress, you're moving forward, you're not sitting still, you're not going backwards, you're definitely making progress. So we think more like that instead of perfectionism. We don't want to. I think we put that in our younger children so much. Maybe that's why they're having all of these issues. They're not going to be perfect. They make mistakes. The little 2-year-olds make mistakes. Oh, they don't know anything.
Hey, I have 2 teenagers right now. One is about to turn 14, and we're in that phase. Love her, but when my kids were younger, people would say to me, just wait till they get to the teenage years. Well, I know exactly what they're talking about now. They know everything. Mom and dad.
They go somewhere, but they
Yeah.
come for 3 years. They go somewhere, but they come back.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Well, it's been a joy having you on. And Jesslyn, where are you speaking next? Tell us.
Right now I don't have anything lined up right now. I'm solely working on my book. I'm
Okay.
in that kind of phase. I did speak a couple weeks ago at a faith leaders breakfast in Chapel Hill. And of course, if somebody reaches out to me, I would love to speak. I love speaking anywhere about this topic. But right now I'm just kind of in the writing process.
Okay, well, tell us how people can connect with you. And she's open for speaking engagements. So reach out if you would love for her to come speak for your group, your church, your women's group, your children's group, your gently aged group. So how can they connect with you?
The best way to be able to connect with me is when my website, which is www.jesslynmccutcheon.com, it will be up live and running by the end of this month. There is a contact page on there to be able to put in your contact information. If you're interested in having me come speak at your group or whatever, that probably would be the best place. But you can also reach me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @Fighting Goliath, the number 4 mental illness. And I also do have one for Jesslyn McCutcheon, because some people, go to Jesslyn McCutcheon, they don't put the 2 together yet, So either one of those places you can reach me. those are probably the best. Oh, and I have a support group on Facebook called Fighting Goliath, where it's a private support group consisting of people who live with mental illness, parents, anybody who is affected by mental illness. It's a support group. We are there for each other. And there are a lot of resources shared there as well, as with my Instagram account too.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate your vulnerability and your courage to share what you've been going through, and at the times you did suffer in silence. And now God's given you your mission and purpose. You know it. Don't you just love it when the clarity comes in? That's awesome.
It is the most beautiful thing. And I never thought I would say I am thankful for living with a serious mental illness, but I am thankful. I now know God in a way that this personal relationship that I know going forward for the rest of my life, even living with this, that I am going to be okay through the ups and downs, through the journey that I'm going to continue to go on. I'm going to be okay. And I know it. I know it.
Yes, I do too. I feel it. I feel your spirit. I thank God for this connection. And I thank Brian at Christian Mix 106. Want to give him a shout out for making the.
Thank you, Brian. We love you.
This will air on Christian Mix 106 as well. So everyone, if you need help, the number is 988. If you're in a suicidal mood or have some depression, just call that number. It's private and confidential. And family members, friends, actively listen and be present and be there. Take action. Don't just let your family member or friends just shrink back into non-existence. We don't want that to happen. They have a mission too, just like you. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, Jesslyn, again. And I will put all your contact information on the show notes. And remember, Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And it is a daily process. Renew your mind daily. Yes. So thank you for joining. We will be in prayer with you. Her support group sounds great. And I want you to stay tuned for our next episode.
Thank you so much for having me on and sharing this important subject today. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the 360 Network for Women and Real Heart Talk podcast. We're so happy you could join and hope you stay tuned for the next episode.